Is aging really the end? Buddhist secrets to living your best life after 60. As we grow older, many of us are told that our best years are behind us. We hear that aging is a time to slow down, to stop chasing life's dreams, and to simply prepare for the final chapters. But what if everything we've been told is wrong? What if aging isn't about fading away or diminishing, but about deepening our wisdom, finding peace with ourselves, and embracing the richness that comes with every passing year? What if the most fulfilling chapters of your life are still ahead of you? In this video, we're going to explore a powerful idea that aging is not a time of decline, but a unique opportunity for growth. Instead of seeing it as a time to slow down, we'll discover how aging offers us a chance to open our hearts and minds to the fullness of life. By embracing self-compassion, we can find peace, purpose, and fulfillment at every stage of our lives. Now, I know that aging can sometimes feel daunting. The changes we experience, physically, mentally, and emotionally, can lead us to question our worth and even our ability to live fully. You may wonder if there's still time for you to achieve everything you've dreamed of. But here's the truth. In Buddhist philosophy, aging is not something to fear. It is, in fact, a time to cultivate wisdom, compassion, and acceptance. It's a time to reconnect with ourselves, to embrace who we are, and to find fulfillment in every moment. So, stay with us until the end of this video, because what we're about to explore will change the way you see aging and help you find peace in the natural flow of life. This video is packed with valuable insights and practical wisdom that will not only challenge the common views of aging, but also empower you to live with greater joy and purpose. If you're over 60, you may have felt that time is slipping away. But in reality, there's so much still waiting for you to discover. Aging doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in to the wisdom and beauty that comes from the inside out. So, let's dive into how we can embrace this season of life with grace and peace. Part 1. The gift of time and reflection. As we step into the later chapters of our lives, the rhythm of time often becomes more pronounced, like a gentle stream that once seemed to rush, now flowing with greater clarity. The sound of the world around us may soften, leaving us with more time for quiet contemplation. It's in these moments of stillness that we may find ourselves, like a retired teacher, sitting in the comfort of a favorite armchair, the pages of old journals in our hands, reflecting on the journey we've walked. The teacher, now in his 70s, has spent decades imparting wisdom to others, guiding his students, shaping young minds with the compassion and knowledge he had spent a lifetime accumulating. But as he gazes at his journals, he realizes that the wisdom he so freely shared with others had not been directed inward. He had spent so much of his life looking outward, serving others, giving of himself. But now, in the silence of his own home, he wonders, what about my own story? What wisdom have I accumulated for myself? In the stillness of the evening, the teacher begins to reflect on his life. The wisdom he had passed on to others had always been external, but now, as the years have gone by, he realizes that it's time to turn that wisdom inward. It's time to honor his own journey, his own growth, and the depth of his story. Reflection in this moment becomes his teacher, guiding him to discover a deeper sense of peace. He begins to understand that it is not in external achievements that life's richness is found, but in the connection we build with our true self in the quiet moments of introspection. The wisdom of his years has finally come to rest in his heart. In Buddhism, one of the core teachings is the impermanence of life. Everything changes, and nothing remains the same. We can see this in the world around us, from the ever-changing seasons to the inevitable cycle of life and death. But rather than seeing this as something to fear, the Buddha teaches us to embrace impermanence. Life's flow is not something to resist. It is something to dance with, to be at peace with. Aging in this light is not a time of loss, but a time of transformation. Just like a river that carves through stone, our lives, too, are shaped by time. The flow of life is constant, but each moment, each passing year, adds to the depth and beauty of our story. We are not fixed. We are ever evolving, much like the river that continues to reshape its banks. As we grow older, we are gifted with time. Time that once seemed so fleeting now becomes a valuable teacher. The ticking of the clock no longer feels like a reminder of time slipping away, but rather a gentle nudge to pause, to reflect, and to reconnect with our purpose. In our youth, we may have been caught up in the rush of life, chasing careers, building families, striving for achievements. But now, with the wisdom of time, we begin to understand that true fulfillment is not found in what we have achieved, but in the relationships we've nurtured, the moments we've shared, and the wisdom we've gained. As the teacher begins to reflect on his past, he sees that his life was not defined by titles or accolades, but by the way he cared for others, the love he shared, and the lessons he imparted. Buddhism teaches us that reflection is a practice that allows us to honor the journey of our lives. Reflection is not about dwelling on the past with regret or nostalgia, but about acknowledging the growth we have experienced and the wisdom we have gained along the way. It is about looking back with gratitude and respect, recognizing that every step we have taken, no matter how small, has contributed to the person we are today. In the stillness of the evening, the teacher realizes that the true gift of his later years is not the time he spent teaching others, but the time he now has to teach himself, to reflect on the journey, and to embrace the wisdom that is waiting to be discovered within. As we age, the gift of time becomes even more apparent. The days of rushing and striving may no longer hold the same appeal, but the time we now have offers us a unique opportunity to reflect deeply on our lives. This is a gift that we must cherish, for it allows us to honor our journey and acknowledge the richness of the experiences that have shaped us. In Buddhism, the practice of mindfulness is integral to reflection. Mindfulness encourages us to be present, to observe our thoughts and feelings without judgment, and to fully experience the beauty of each moment. As we age, mindfulness becomes even more essential, as it allows us to accept the changes that come with growing older, to honor the wisdom stored in our hearts, and to find peace in the present moment. There is a beautiful story from Buddhist teachings that speaks to the power of reflection. A monk, having spent many years in solitude meditating on his life, was once approached by a young disciple who asked him the secret to living a fulfilled life. The monk replied, "To live well, one must understand both the past and the future. The present is but a moment between the two." This simple yet profound statement carries a powerful truth. To truly live with fulfillment, we must honor both the past and the future, recognizing that the present moment is where we hold the power to shape the life we wish to create. Just as the monk reflected on his life with wisdom, we too have the opportunity to reflect on our experiences, to find peace in what we have learned, and to move forward with a deeper understanding of who we are and who we are becoming. Aging is not a time of decline, but a time of growth. With each passing year, we accumulate not only the effects of time on our bodies, but also the wisdom that comes with living fully. In the later years of our lives, we are given the opportunity to reflect, not with self-criticism, but with love and compassion for ourselves. We can honor the lessons we have learned, the wisdom we have gained, and allow these teachings to shape the next chapters of our lives. The gift of time and reflection is something we must treasure, for it provides us with the chance to reconnect with our true self, to embrace the impermanence of life, and to find fulfillment in every moment. In Buddhism, reflection is not merely about looking back. It is about honoring the past, learning from it, and using that wisdom to create a more meaningful future. The practice of reflection allows us to see the beauty in our lives, to acknowledge the wisdom that has been cultivated, and to move forward with gratitude and peace. As we age, we find that the richness of life is not found in external achievements, but in the depth of our inner knowing, in the wisdom we carry within, and in the love and compassion we share with others. The teacher, now in his 70s, has finally come to understand that reflection is not a burden, but a gift, a chance to honor his own story, to rediscover the richness of his life, and to move forward with peace and gratitude. As he continues to read through his journals, he sees that the true measure of a life well lived is not in the things we've accomplished, but in the wisdom we have gained, the love we have shared, and the peace we have found within ourselves. Part 2. Letting go of self-judgment. As the years pass, many of us find ourselves living in a world shaped by expectations. Expectations from society, from family, and perhaps most poignantly from ourselves. It's as though we spend much of our lives chasing an ideal, trying to reach a standard that is often unattainable. In our youth, this drive might feel energizing, even empowering, but as we grow older, the weight of self-judgment can become overwhelming. We begin to measure our worth by what we've achieved, by what we've accomplished, and if we don't meet those standards, we feel the sting of failure. This is especially true in our later years when the clock seems to tick louder, reminding us of what we have or haven't done. A woman in her 60s, a woman who had spent much of her life striving to meet these expectations, found herself in the same struggle. Her days were consumed with thoughts of what she hadn't done. She would look back and feel regret, a quiet voice in her mind telling her she hadn't accomplished enough, that she wasn't enough. No matter how much she achieved, there always seemed to be something more to do, more to prove, more to attain. And so she kept pushing forward, never truly pausing to appreciate the journey she had already walked. One day, however, she decided to stop. She sat in quiet meditation, her eyes closed, her breath steady and deep. For the first time in many years, she gave herself permission to simply be. No goals, no judgments, no to-do lists running through her mind. In that silence, she found something remarkable, a sense of peace that had eluded her for decades. She had been so caught up in judging herself, so focused on what she hadn't done or who she hadn't become, that she had never truly given herself the space to accept who she truly was. The realization was profound. She understood that self-judgment had robbed her of the joy that was waiting right in front of her. It wasn't about doing more. It was about being more, being present with herself in the moment. This shift in perspective is at the heart of Buddhist teachings on self-compassion. In Buddhism, we are reminded that we must treat ourselves with kindness, especially as we age. The practice of mindfulness is central to this, as it teaches us to observe our thoughts and emotions without attachment, without judgment. The woman's moment of reflection was a form of mindfulness, a conscious choice to release self-criticism and accept herself just as she was. In that very moment, she learned that self-compassion isn't about complacency. It isn't about ignoring areas of our life where growth is needed. Rather, it's about accepting our imperfections, recognizing our inherent worth, and allowing ourselves to be at peace with who we are. In our society, we are often conditioned to believe that in order to be worthy, we must constantly achieve, constantly strive, and never stop reaching for more. But in Buddhist philosophy, there is a deep understanding that this drive, when it comes from a place of self-judgment, only leads to suffering. In contrast, when we practice self-compassion, we allow ourselves to experience joy, peace, and fulfillment, regardless of what we have or haven't achieved. We become aware that we are enough, just as we are. This awareness doesn't come from the outside, from accomplishments or approval, but from within. It comes from the heart, from recognizing that the journey itself is the destination, and that each step, no matter how small, is worth celebrating. One of the most important practices in Buddhism that helps us cultivate this self-compassion is metta, or loving-kindness meditation. Metta is the practice of sending love and compassion, first to ourselves and then to others. As we age, the practice of metta becomes even more important. In our younger years, we may be driven by the desire to prove ourselves to the world, but in our later years, we are invited to shift our focus inward. Just as a mother would care for her child with tenderness, we must learn to offer that same care to ourselves. With every breath, we can send kindness to ourselves. We can acknowledge our flaws, our imperfections, and our limitations, not as shortcomings, but as part of our unique and beautiful journey. As we age, it is common to feel like we are running out of time, that there's more to do, more to fix. But true peace doesn't come from an endless list of accomplishments. It comes from accepting ourselves, from embracing the truth that we are enough, just as we are. In the Buddhist tradition, we are reminded to live in the present moment, to let go of the past and not worry about the future. Self-compassion allows us to do this. It allows us to release the weight of judgment and instead be gentle with ourselves. When we stop judging ourselves, we make space for gratitude and joy. We begin to see that life, even in its later years, is full of possibilities, if we allow ourselves to see them. Let us consider the story of the woman in her garden. After years of harsh self-criticism, she found a new sense of peace as she tended to the flowers. She smiled as she nurtured each petal, recognizing the beauty in the simple act of caring for something other than herself. She understood that self-compassion wasn't about complacency. It was about accepting the life she had lived, with all its ups and downs, and choosing to embrace the present moment with love and gratitude. Just as she tended to the flowers with care, she began to tend to herself with the same kindness and patience. The practice of self-compassion in Buddhism is not about indulging ourselves in comfort or avoiding discomfort. It is about learning to hold our hearts with tenderness, recognizing that we are worthy of love and kindness, especially from ourselves. This practice does not mean we ignore areas where we can grow or improve. Rather, it means that we approach ourselves with the same compassion we would offer a dear friend. We allow ourselves to make mistakes, to learn, and to grow without harsh criticism or self-doubt. By doing so, we create space for the peace and fulfillment that come from within. In the later years of life, we may feel as though we've reached the end of one chapter, but in reality, life offers us new opportunities to discover peace, wisdom, and joy. The practice of self-compassion is one of the most profound tools we have to navigate this phase of life with grace. Just as a flower blooms after a long winter, we too can experience a new kind of blossoming as we let go of the self-judgment that has held us back. We can embrace who we are without striving to be anything else, and in that acceptance, we find the freedom to live with peace. Through the wisdom of Buddhism, we are reminded that true happiness comes from within. It comes from releasing the burden of self-criticism and embracing ourselves with love. It is a journey that we can all take, no matter where we are in life. When we practice self-compassion, we begin to live not for the approval of others, but for the joy that comes from simply being who we are. In the end, the woman in the garden discovered something beautiful. That self-compassion is not about being perfect. It is about being present, being kind to ourselves, and allowing ourselves to grow, even in our later years. In that gentle acceptance, she found a peace that had eluded her for much of her life. And in that peace, she discovered a richness that could only come from within. Part 3. Embracing impermanence and change. As we age, we inevitably encounter the changes that time brings, physically, mentally, and emotionally. These changes can be difficult to accept, especially when we are conditioned to view them as losses. The gray hairs, the creaky joints, the wrinkles, all these reminders of the passing years can stir up feelings of fear, sadness, and even resistance. We might wonder, what am I losing? Who am I becoming? And why does it feel like everything I've known is slipping away? But one autumn, while walking in a nearby forest, an older man came to a profound realization. He had spent much of his life resisting the inevitable changes that aging brings. He feared that growing older meant losing something vital, something irreplaceable. The first few signs of aging had unsettled him. Yet one fall day, while standing among the trees, he watched as the golden and crimson leaves gently fell from the branches. For the first time, he saw the falling leaves not as a loss, but as part of the natural cycle of life. He realized that the leaves did not die, they made way for new growth, for new life to emerge in the spring. The very act of change was what allowed life to continue to evolve, to renew itself. In that moment, he understood something deeply profound. Aging, too, was part of that cycle. It was not something to fear, but to embrace. Just as autumn is not the end of the tree's life, but a necessary preparation for the blossoming that will come in spring, so too is aging, a process of change that is rich with its own beauty and wisdom. The leaves falling from the trees weren't losses. They were part of the natural process of growth, a symbol of the impermanence that defines all life. Buddhism teaches us that impermanence is the very nature of existence. Everything is constantly changing, including ourselves. Our bodies, our thoughts, our circumstances, all are in a continuous state of flux. The Buddha spoke often of impermanence, teaching that everything is subject to change, and that suffering arises when we resist that change. It is human nature to want things to remain the same, to cling to the familiar, to fight against the inevitable. But in doing so, we trap ourselves in a cycle of dissatisfaction. The key to peace, the Buddha taught, is not in resisting change but in accepting it. Acceptance of impermanence doesn't mean resignation or passivity. It means embracing the flow of life, understanding that change is not something to fear, but something to welcome. Aging, then, is not a loss. It is a transformation, an opportunity to evolve in ways we may not fully understand yet. The very fact that we are changing is a testament to the vitality of life. The older man in the forest had learned this through his quiet moments of reflection. Just as the changing seasons bring their own beauty, so does aging. Each stage of life has its own wisdom to offer, and each moment, each season, is an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to embrace the unfolding of life. In Buddhism, one of the most important teachings on change is the story of a Zen monk who is instructed by his teacher to meditate on the changing nature of all things. The river you are crossing is not the same river you crossed yesterday, the teacher tells him. This simple but profound statement holds a powerful truth. The river, like everything in life, is constantly changing. We are never the same person we were yesterday, and neither is the world around us. The river we cross today is a new river, just as each day is a new day. We may travel down the same path, but the experience is always different because everything is always in motion, always changing. This is true of aging as well. As we grow older, the river of our lives changes. And with each passing season, we have the opportunity to see the world through new eyes. Aging is not about holding on to the past or resisting the future. It is about letting go and allowing life to unfold in its natural course. We can learn to accept the impermanence of life with grace and wisdom, understanding that change is not something to fear but something to embrace. The older man in the forest understood this when he saw the leaves falling from the trees. They were not falling into nothingness. They were falling into the promise of new growth, new life, and new possibilities. Acceptance of impermanence brings peace. When we resist change, we create suffering. When we embrace change, we create the conditions for peace to arise. The more we learn to accept impermanence, the more peace we find in the present moment. Just as the autumn leaves fall to make way for new life in the spring, we too can allow ourselves to let go of the old, the worn out, and the unnecessary, making space for the new, the fresh, and the unknown. This is the beauty of aging. It is not a time of loss, but a time of transformation. The older man, after his moment of reflection in the forest, felt a deep sense of peace. He no longer feared aging or change. Instead, he embraced it. He understood that each season of life brings its own unique wisdom. With each new wrinkle, each gray hair, he saw not a loss, but a sign of a life fully lived. And he knew that just as the forest would bloom again in the spring, so too would he continue to grow, to learn, and to embrace the changes that life would bring. In Buddhism, impermanence is not just a concept. It is a call to live fully in the present moment. By accepting the natural flow of life, we free ourselves from the anxiety and fear that often accompany aging. We allow ourselves to live with intention, to appreciate the beauty of each passing day, and to recognize that every moment, no matter how fleeting, is an opportunity to grow and evolve. When we embrace impermanence, we let go of attachment to things, to outcomes, to expectations. And in doing so, we open ourselves to the beauty of life as it is. The older man's journey in the forest became a metaphor for his life. He walked through the changing seasons, accepting each one as it came, and finding peace in the knowledge that change was not something to fear, but something to welcome. Just as the leaves fall in autumn, making way for new life in the spring, so too can we embrace the changes that aging brings. Each stage of life has its own beauty, its own wisdom, and its own gifts to offer. And as we age, we are given the opportunity to see the world with new eyes, to embrace the impermanence of life, and to find peace in the natural flow of life's unfolding. Aging in this light becomes a beautiful journey, not one of loss, but one of transformation. It is a process of continual growth, continual learning, and continual evolution. As we age, we become more in tune with the impermanent nature of life, and in doing so, we find peace. Just as the changing seasons bring new life to the earth, so too can the changing seasons of our lives bring new wisdom, new growth, and new possibilities. The beauty of life lies not in its permanence, but in its ability to evolve, to transform, and to create something new with each passing day. When we learn to embrace change, to accept impermanence, we open ourselves to the fullness of life. Each season, whether it's spring, summer, autumn, or winter, has its own unique beauty, and each moment of life has its own unique gifts to offer. Aging is not a time of decline, but a time of growth, a time to deepen our understanding, and a time to embrace the fullness of life. The older man in the forest, standing among the trees, understood this, and in that understanding he found peace. Just as the leaves fall to make way for new growth, so too do we grow with each passing year, each passing season, each passing moment. Acceptance of impermanence is the key to peace. The more we resist change, the more we suffer. The more we accept it, the more we find freedom. Aging is not a loss. It is a continuation of the cycle of life, a beautiful transformation that is filled with wisdom, grace, and peace. Let us, like the older man in the forest, embrace the changes that aging brings, knowing that each season of life is a new opportunity to grow, to learn, and to find peace in the present moment. Part 4. Cultivating Gratitude and Joy. As we grow older, it's easy to become fixated on what we don't have. We may spend our days dwelling on what's missing from our lives, perhaps feeling regret over lost time, fear about what the future holds, or longing for a past that can never be reclaimed. Many of us have been taught to chase after more, to always strive for something beyond our grasp, believing that fulfillment lies in the future, in something yet to be achieved. But there is an old Buddhist truth that speaks to the heart of this longing. Happiness does not come from external circumstances. It is born within us, from the simple act of being present, from cultivating gratitude for the moment at hand. Take, for example, the story of a woman in her 70s who had spent much of her life focusing on what she didn't have. She had spent years worrying about things she couldn't change, regret for things left undone, anxiety about what might lie ahead. She often found herself stuck in the past, replaying old memories, or lost in the future, unable to embrace the present. Her life had been filled with love, joy, and accomplishments, yet she couldn't fully appreciate what she had. One afternoon, however, everything shifted. She was baking cookies with her grandchildren, the kitchen filled with warmth and laughter. As she measured flour and stirred the dough, something remarkable happened. She stopped and realized that, in this simple moment, she had everything she needed. For the first time in many years, she felt at peace. There was no regret about the past, no fear about the future. There was only the warmth of the kitchen, the joy of being surrounded by family, and the satisfaction of knowing she was exactly where she needed to be. The act of baking cookies with her grandchildren was not just a simple task. It was a profound moment of presence, of being fully aware and grateful for the love and joy that already filled her life. This moment of reflection holds within it a powerful lesson: the practice of gratitude. Gratitude is a central concept in Buddhist teachings. The Buddha taught that happiness arises not from external circumstances, but from our internal state. It is the mind and heart that determine our sense of fulfillment, not the things we accumulate or the events that unfold outside of us. When we focus on what we lack, we are constantly chasing something outside ourselves, something that may never be fully realized. But when we focus on what we have, we open ourselves to a life of deep fulfillment and joy. Gratitude, as the Buddha teaches, has the power to shift our mindset, to transform our experience of life. In the woman's story, the simple act of baking cookies with her grandchildren became a moment of mindfulness. By turning her attention to the present, to the love surrounding her, she realized that true happiness isn't found in what we're missing. It's found in appreciating what is already here. This moment was a reminder that every moment, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, holds the potential for joy if we are willing to open ourselves to it. In Buddhism, there is a practice known as mindfulness or sati, the art of being fully present, aware, and appreciative of the moment. This practice can be as simple as taking a few moments each day to reflect on what we are grateful for. It may seem small, but the effects are profound. Each time we pause to reflect on the beauty of the present moment, we cultivate a mindset of gratitude. We shift from focusing on what is lacking to appreciating what is already in our lives. In this way, we begin to change the way we experience life. In fact, one of the most common mindfulness practices in Buddhism is to engage in a daily reflection on gratitude. Each day, as you wake up, take a moment to acknowledge the blessings in your life. It might be as simple as being grateful for the roof over your head, the food on your table, or the relationships that bring you joy. It doesn't have to be grand, just an honest recognition of the things that bring you peace, that nurture your soul. When you practice gratitude in this way, you start to shift your perspective. The more you practice, the more you begin to see the beauty in everything around you. You start to notice the small moments, the smile of a stranger, the warmth of the sun on your face, the sound of birds singing in the morning. These simple moments, when seen through the lens of gratitude, become sources of joy and fulfillment. This practice of gratitude is also closely tied to the Buddhist concept of metta, or loving kindness. In metta meditation, we practice sending love and compassion first to ourselves, then to others, and eventually to all beings. When we cultivate loving kindness, we open ourselves to the inherent goodness in others and in the world. Gratitude, in a way, is a form of loving kindness toward ourselves. It is an acknowledgement that we are worthy of love, that the present moment is enough, and that we are enough. By embracing gratitude, we cultivate a heart full of compassion, not only for others but for ourselves. There is a beautiful story from the Buddha's life that illustrates the power of gratitude. Once, a young monk came to the Buddha and asked, "How can I find peace?" The Buddha replied, "Sit quietly and focus on the breath. Let go of all your worries and regrets, and simply be grateful for the life you have." The monk was surprised by this response. "But Master," he asked, "how can I find peace if I am so burdened by my thoughts and emotions?" The Buddha smiled and said, "Gratitude is the key to peace. When you let go of what you lack and appreciate what you have, your heart will find peace." The monk, eager to follow the Buddha's advice, sat in meditation, focusing on his breath and cultivating gratitude. Over time, he found that peace did not come from external circumstances. It came from within, from his ability to be present and grateful for the gift of life itself. In Buddhism, the practice of gratitude is not just about feeling thankful. It is about experiencing the fullness of life in every moment. It is about being present with the joy that already exists, instead of chasing after something we think we need. Just as the woman in her 70s discovered the joy of baking cookies with her grandchildren, we too can find joy in the simple acts of life. When we stop and truly appreciate the present moment, we unlock a deep well of happiness that is always available to us, if we are willing to open ourselves to it. The key, then, is mindfulness. Mindfulness allows us to notice the beauty of the present moment, to feel gratitude for what we have, and to share that joy with others. When we are mindful of our thoughts and feelings, we can begin to let go of the distractions that keep us from experiencing the fullness of life. We can stop worrying about the past, stop fearing the future, and simply be present with what is. As we continue through life, it's easy to forget how much we have to be grateful for. The demands of the world often pull our attention away from the beauty that surrounds us. But in the practice of gratitude, we are reminded of the goodness that exists in our lives. Gratitude opens our hearts, brings us back to the present moment, and fills our lives with joy. Whether it's baking cookies with our grandchildren or simply sitting in silence, gratitude helps us experience the profound beauty of life. In conclusion, the practice of gratitude is one of the most powerful tools we have to create a life of fulfillment and joy. It is a practice that requires us to be present, to let go of what we don't have, and to appreciate what we already have. Gratitude is a gift we give ourselves, one that allows us to experience the richness of life. When we focus on what we have, we open ourselves to a life of abundance. And when we live with gratitude, we cultivate joy, peace, and fulfillment in every moment. Part 5. Living with Purpose and Peace. As we grow older, we often find ourselves looking back on the years spent working, raising families, and fulfilling societal expectations. In youth, purpose often feels tied to external achievements, career milestones, academic degrees, personal ambitions, and financial success. We are told that purpose is found in the pursuit of more goals, more success, more recognition. But as we age, the meaning of purpose transforms, often in subtle ways. We begin to realize that purpose isn't something we must chase, nor is it tied to external accomplishments. Rather, it is something that arises naturally, from within, from the very way we live our lives day by day. One elderly woman who had spent much of her life working hard to provide for her family and fulfilling the expectations of others, found herself in quiet reflection as she grew older. She had always believed that purpose meant achieving certain milestones, attaining specific goals, and having a career that defined her. But one day, while sitting on a park bench, watching children play and feeling the warmth of the sun on her face, she realized something profound. Her purpose was not defined by any of those things. It wasn't about external achievements, titles, or accolades. Her purpose had always been and always would be about the love she shared, the wisdom she imparted, and the care she offered to those around her. It was in the everyday acts of kindness, in the quiet moments of connection, and in the love she gave to her family and friends. This realization brought her a deep sense of peace. She understood that her life, in its simplest form, was full of meaning. She didn't need to be remembered for her career or her accomplishments. What mattered most was the love and wisdom she had shared throughout her life. She had lived in alignment with her values, and that was enough. In that quiet moment, as she watched the children play, she realized that her life had been a rich tapestry woven with purpose, and it had always been there, quietly guiding her every step of the way. Buddhism teaches us that purpose is not something we must chase externally. It is not something we find in the hustle and bustle of the world, in the constant drive for achievement or status. Instead, purpose is found within us, in the quiet moments when we are fully present, in the way we relate to ourselves and others. The Buddha's teachings remind us that our purpose is not about fulfilling external expectations, but about aligning ourselves with our true nature, our inner wisdom, and the values that matter most to us. This is why the practice of mindfulness is so important in Buddhist philosophy. It helps us connect with our true purpose by cultivating awareness of the present moment and living with intention. As we age, we often have more time to reflect on the meaning of our lives. The external markers of success may no longer hold the same weight as they once did. In our later years, we may come to realize that our purpose isn't found in what we've achieved, but in how we've lived, how we've loved, how we've cared for others, and how we've shared the wisdom we've gained over the years. Aging, then, becomes an opportunity to deepen our understanding of ourselves and our purpose. It is not a time to slow down, but a time to grow in new and meaningful ways, to embrace the wisdom within us and to share it with others. A beautiful story from the Buddha's teachings speaks to the idea of living with purpose. There was once a monk who had dedicated his life to meditation and seeking enlightenment. He spent many years in quiet solitude, seeking to understand the nature of the mind and the world around him. One day, a disciple came to him and asked, "Master, how can I find my purpose in life?" The monk smiled and replied, "Your purpose is not something you need to search for outside of yourself. It is already within you, waiting to be discovered. To find your purpose, simply live with awareness and kindness. Treat others with respect and live in alignment with your true nature. When you live with mindfulness, your purpose will naturally unfold before you." This simple yet profound answer reflects the core of Buddhist teachings on purpose. Purpose is not something that is forced or pursued. It arises naturally when we live mindfully, when we are present with ourselves and the world around us. It is not about reaching some distant goal or achieving a lofty ambition, but about being true to who we are in each moment. As we grow older, we have the opportunity to live more fully in alignment with our values, to share our wisdom, and to find peace in the simple acts of living. Living with purpose is not about doing more. It is about being more. It is about aligning our actions with our values and allowing our true selves to emerge in every aspect of life. It is in the small, everyday moments, helping a neighbor, sharing a story with a friend, or simply sitting in quiet contemplation, that we discover our purpose. Each act of kindness, each moment of presence, adds depth and meaning to our lives. For example, one elderly woman had spent years feeling disconnected from her true purpose. She had been so focused on what she didn't achieve that she failed to see the beauty of the life she had lived. But in her later years, she began to realize that her purpose was not tied to what she had done or accomplished. It was found in the love she had given to others, the wisdom she had shared, and the moments of joy she had experienced. She began to embrace the idea that her purpose was already fulfilled, not through external success, but through the internal peace and love she had cultivated over the years. It was in these quiet moments of reflection that she discovered the true meaning of purpose. Living with purpose and peace is a central theme in Buddhist philosophy. The Buddha taught that true fulfillment comes not from external achievements, but from living in alignment with our deepest values. Purpose is not something we must strive for. It is something we must allow ourselves to experience by living mindfully, by being fully present in each moment, and by offering love and compassion to others. As we age, we have the opportunity to find peace by embracing the wisdom within us, sharing it with those around us, and living in harmony with the world. Aging is not a time to slow down. It is a time to deepen. It is a time to grow in new and meaningful ways, to connect with the wisdom within, and to share that wisdom with others. Living with purpose and peace means embracing the fullness of life, no matter what age we are. It means recognizing that our purpose is not defined by what we do, but by how we live, how we love, and how we share our wisdom with the world. Aging is not the end of our purpose. It is the continuation of a journey that deepens with every passing day. As we reflect on our lives, we may discover that our purpose has always been there, quietly guiding us along the way. We are not defined by our past or our achievements. We are defined by the love we give, the peace we find, and the wisdom we share. The gift of aging is not the end of our journey, but an opportunity to deepen it, to live with greater intention, and to embrace the wisdom that comes with the passage of time. The older woman in the park, sitting on the bench and watching the children play, understood this truth. Her purpose had always been about love, love for her family, love for her community, and love for herself. She realized that her life had meaning beyond her career, beyond any titles or external achievements. Her purpose was not something to chase. It was something to live with every breath, every smile, and every moment of peace. And in that realization, she found peace. As we age, we too have the opportunity to live with purpose and peace. We are not defined by what we have done, but by how we choose to live in each moment. Aging is not a time to stop. It is a time to deepen, to grow, and to embrace the wisdom within. The best is not behind us. It is ahead of us, waiting to unfold in the quiet moments of love, peace, and wisdom that we share with the world. As the sun sets, casting its final golden rays over the horizon, a quiet sense of peace settles in. We've explored together the richness of life's later years, the beauty that comes with accepting impermanence, and the deep fulfillment that arises from living with purpose and compassion. We've journeyed through the teachings of the Buddha, discovered the power of mindfulness, and embraced the wisdom that age brings. But here's the truth. This is only the beginning. The wisdom shared in this video is not just a lesson, it's a pathway for you to live a life filled with greater joy, inner peace, and understanding. As we age, we don't simply fade away. We blossom into the truest version of ourselves, unfolding like the leaves in autumn, embracing each new season with open arms and a loving heart. If you've resonated with these teachings, if something stirred within you as we shared these stories, then I encourage you to reflect on this. You are not defined by your past. You are defined by the choices you make in the present. The love you give, the wisdom you share, the compassion you show, it all matters. And as you move forward, may you remember this truth: the best is yet to come. So take a moment to pause, to reflect, and to embrace the gift of aging. Know that every step forward, every breath you take, is an opportunity to grow, to deepen, and to embrace the fullness of life. Before you go, I want to remind you that there is so much more to explore on this journey. If you found these teachings helpful, inspiring, or thought-provoking, please leave a comment below. Share your thoughts with me. I'd love to hear how this video has touched you. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We have so many more meaningful reflections, teachings, and stories to share with you. Together, let's continue this journey of growth, wisdom, and inner peace. Thank you for watching. Remember, life is not something to fear, it's something to embrace. Keep living with intention, love, and gratitude. And until we meet again, may your heart be full, your path be clear, and may you walk with peace. Don't miss out. Subscribe now and join us on this path of self-discovery, peace, and growth. The journey continues, and it's one that you don't want to miss.